Josh, you were asking about David Gilmour and his style and kind of a bit of his sound. So first of all, the sound, as you could hear, I've got a lot of delay and reverb on there. He liked using early Univibes, which is the rotary speaker. He liked using the early Rotovibe sound out of his pedals, which you can get with either a chorus or if you want to get a Univibe. I left that out of this sound just so that it's a little bit more clear when you're listening to this. But that first part was from Breathe. Great chord progression. It's got very David Gilmour-y chords, such as this C, where he adds the G on the bottom and turns it into a C major 7 minus the first finger. That's something that he did a lot of. But he also liked to double his chords, so if he had a D here, he would add little notes up here, little fills, or he would just do the chords up a little bit. So he would be making these chords. He would have the low D, so he would just be filling out the chords up the neck. So you have a D here, you have a D here, you have a D here, and then obviously you have a D here. You add this one and this one together, you get a neat sound there. You can add this one just for a little bit more of that top end to add on top of that, or if you just want to double it all the way up. It was something that he did a lot of. He turned his riffs into those. And what I want to get at is some of his little licks that he would add in. So you have he liked doing his double stops, and you saw it in the first example with Breathe. As soon as I go to that A chord, starts off with a little riff up here that's continuing in the A scale, just adding that. So you're in an A major. I keep going up. So if I'm doing so this would be the fifth. And then what you want to do is you want to know how to play this scale going up the fretboard. All the way up. So his first riff goes there, and then he goes back to that E minor. The second riff, just does the scale moving down. And if you notice with my right hand, it's tough to see in here, what I'm using is I'm using my pick and then my middle finger. So that each note is very clear. And you don't have to do that down, up, and possibly hit a note or a string that might be deadened out. One thing about David Gilmour is that he is very clean with his sound. You don't hear a lot of extra noise when he's playing. Nice and clear. So you want to make sure that your fingers are positioned properly, so that you can get the full effect of the note. So, if David Gilmour is playing this A7, adds in that little sus because he loves doing that. He does that in a lot of songs. So you get used to a little riff like that. Now, these riffs, you can put them on any kind of string that are not right beside each other. So you can put them on the G and the B string, or G and the E string, or you can have it on the D and the B string, and sometimes you have it on the A and the G string. For the most part, I see these riffs on the B and the E, the G and the E string, or the D and the B string. So you get used to it in different positions, and then you just get used to where it is. You want to try your hand at scales using the entire fretboard. So instead of thinking a scale as you normally do, you think of it across the fretboard. So if I wanted to do a scale in E using the G and the E string, I would be in E major, like so. So just like that, all the way up the fretboard. And then you get to know where all those positions are, and you can play through them. And the better you know all your scales all the way up and down, you can do it with an F, you can do it with a C, you can do it with any of these. So you get used to where those are up the fretboard, and then you can add in those little riffs like that. So again, on the G and the E string adjacent, and again I'm using my pick middle finger. There it is. Using my pinky and my pick and my middle finger just to keep it nice and clean. And then you do that over, so you have the E here, and I want to do an A on this one. So, where does the A go? Does it go there? No. Some really neat ideas to play up and down the fretboard. His choice of chords, his choice of feel, all has a very David Gilmour thing. Slow, very meticulous kind of feel to it. Now if you watch him play, a lot of times he uses the bar to make his vibrato. I use my finger, and that seems to work out all right too. Now, David Gilmour was steeped in the blues, and he used the pentatonic scale a lot. Like that was one of his go-to scales for any kind of solo. And say for example, if you're taking a solo from Comfortably Numb, which is in B minor, what he did, the first solo starts on the D, so he's staying in B minor, just starting on the second position, and just kind of going through. Oh. that doesn't sound right without a little bit of gain. When he was recording a lot of these, his gain was a fuzz. He used a big muff fuzz a lot, but he used a bunch of other things too, things that were made for him in the studio, and he had some pedal boards that were custom made for him, but there was always a big muff there. Now when I add gain for a David Gilmour sound, I want a singy, sustainy thing, something that when I hit a note is not going to cut off. Something nice and long, something that will hold that note. So you come back to that Comfortably Numb solo. Him being David Gilmour and being very accurate, he actually does a little rake there. But he does all those little rakes on purpose. Everything he does is on purpose. So again, we take little bits of these riffs. You already know the pentatonic. You probably already know what the blues scale is by going with the pentatonic. If I go into the pentatonic blues scale in B minor, add in that flat 5. Now, Gilmour would do a lot of stuff with that flat 5, and you would hear a lot of cascading. So you'd hear a lot of cascading. He'd add in the... And you can hear that in just about any one of his solos. You have a little run like that. Right. Something like that just kind of comes down to the lower notes. He would go down with those more than he would go up. So just again, little pointers on his style. One of the things that David Gilmour did a lot too was his bends. And if you listen to Another Brick in the Wall solo, you'll hear this. So what he's doing is, instead of bending up just to that note, he'll bend it up to the pitch note and then go up over that pitch note, which gives you that nice smooth up, up, and down. But you have to be really good with your ear to be able to make sure that you hit those pitches correctly, or else it just sounds like, I don't know, someone bending a cat. And no one wants that. So, summation. This is a little bit long. Summation. Throw on the reverb. Give it ample reverb. He used Strats in the studio, but he also used all sorts of other guitars. He used Tellys, and he used some weird guitar that was made with humbuckers and 24 frets. You can see that on the Pompeii video. I think he's actually doing the those little riffs that he's doing there is on the 24 fret humbucker guitar. You can do that with just a bend or with a slide. Both sound cool. So, lots of reverb. Add in some nines. Add in some sus chords. Use your pick and your middle finger to get those double stops on adjacent strings. And then once you get used to, his chords, how he goes into his chords, listen to some of those fills. The fills are some of my favorite parts of his songs. You know, that's cool. Something like that. He always liked doing the. He liked going and hitting those higher notes to get some of those fills in there. And then when you're soloing, if you're thinking of soloing over top of any of his stuff, there's all sorts of backing tracks and that you can go onto on the internet in G, in B minor, in whatever key you want to do. But when you're playing like David Gilmour, you want to think, okay, every note has to be clean, it has to be articulate. When I do my vibratos, make sure you're not overdoing the vibrato. He doesn't do the BB King. He doesn't do the BB King hummingbird vibrato. He does a lot of slow vibratos. You can use the bar, you can use your finger. But as long as you make sure you hit that note and then let it breathe a bit and then vibrato it from there. And then just add in that flat 5, which gives you the blues scale. Gives you a cool sound. Bends. He didn't do it all the time, but it's a cool little technique to be able to get that bend up a step and then bend it up either another half step or even another full step above that. Very, very cool sound. So, hope this was somewhat informative. If you liked it, again, leave me messages about what you would like to hear, and I will try to put a little video together, like with Josh, if you have an example of a guitar player that you'd like to hear about his style and what constitutes his style, let me know. I'll see what I can do. But until next time. Keep up the guitar artistry.